This is the story just won't go away. No matter how many times they try to change the narrative in the press, the story about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell continues to resurface over and over and over. Tyrone Bowman Live, it's all going down, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the conversation and welcome to the program. I will be talking about two different stories, but I'm going to combine them as one. And according to USA Today, in an article written by Bart Jansen, the line reads, quote, "Judge orders release of Ghislaine Maxwell case files about Jeffrey Epstein." We're going to find out what that's about in a moment. And then in a related story, another article talks about how, Ghislaine Maxwell has petitioned the court to be released from prison. And as I said a few moments ago, this is the story that continues to circulate in the press, know how many times they try to change the narrative and switch to something else, but it always comes back to this. It reminds me of the Monica Lewinsky story with President Bill Clinton. It reminds me of the Iran Contra affair when Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States, and reminds me of Watergate with Richard Nixon. So this story is somewhat similar in the sense that it just won't die. So once again, Tyrone Bowman Live. Tyrone Bowman, let's talk about the article in USA Today. A federal judge ordered the release of records about the late accused sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein, from the case against his aide, Ghislaine Maxwell, based on the law Congress approved to remove or to reveal more documents from the investigation. As we get into the story, we'll find out what is the significance here. U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmayer in New York ordered the release of grand jury transcripts and exhibits from the case against Maxwell, who is currently serving 20 years in prison for conspiring with Epstein. Engelmayer also ordered the release of evidence that was shared in the case between the prosecution and the defense before Maxwell's 2021 trial. So here we are 5 years later, and you have a judge demanding the release of files, or case files, I should say, related to the late Jeffrey Epstein. So what is the purpose of it? Why would Judge Engelmayer now be ordering the release of case files pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, there has to be a reason why, so what is the reason? Let's continue on with this story. But Engelmayer ordered the Department of Justice to put in place a mechanism to protect victims from inadvertent release of evidence that would identify them or invade their privacy. Before the new law, which set a deadline of December 19 for the DOJ to release more records about the case, federal judges have refused to release grand jury transcripts because of the traditional confidentiality applied to those proceedings. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that there are never going to be any records released by the DOJ. It's not going to happen. So individuals can stop waiting, stop wanting, stop trying to figure out what's going to happen. So the judge says he demands the release of them, but he wants to protect the identity of any victims to make sure that they're not further dealing with heartache and pain. But Epstein's victims fought for years to release more information about the case, to determine whether his rich and powerful acquaintances had previously discouraged his investigation or helped with his alleged trafficking. Well, you know, when people know people in high places and they're associated with them or they're friends with them, of course they're going to aid and abet. Of course, they would stop any information coming out about their friends. There's a lot of stonewalling going on in Washington. What's happening, Eklund? There's a lot of stonewall going on in Washington, New York City, California, and other parts of the nation. And ladies and gentlemen, please don't be duped into believing or thinking that the politicians are being forthright and forthcoming about anything. The name of the game is to make them look good. It's not about helping anyone. It's not about transparency. Of course, they'll say it's about transparency. It's not about those things. The only time they want to be transparent is about something that they think is going to advance their cause politically, like the stuff that's going on with the Somalis out in Minnesota and the alleged massive fraud going on in that state. Now, that's something they held a press conference on. They expressed righteous indignation about waste and fraud. And as I said in a previous video, what about the political waste and fraud that goes on every single day in Washington? And Ghislaine Maxwell is not going to be satisfied until she is released from prison. Engelmeyer noted the legislation specifically mentions Maxwell and releasing grand jury evidence, which is held by the Department of Justice or the DOJ. Quote, that language is strikingly broad, end quote. Engelmeyer wrote, Congress's decision not to exclude grand jury materials, despite knowledge as to their existence while expressly including other categories of materials such as classified information, indicates that the Act covers grand jury materials. Excuse me. Well, if you can't see that something's going on here, people have to read the fine print. That's why people, before anybody signs any document pertaining to anything, a car, a house, life insurance, etc., always read the fine print. Congress is willing to release redacted classified information that doesn't implicate or charge anyone with any crime that's within the Republican Party. But on the same token, if it implicates anyone from the Democratic side, they'll be glad to release any and all documents pertaining to them. So why the exclusion of the grand jury materials? Because during the cause of the grand jury, everything must be laid out. All so-called evidence must be laid out before a grand jury in order to get an indictment. That's why they fight so hard not to release the grand jury testimony and notes of testimony and records, because then they know that the public, under the Freedom of Information Act, would be now privy to whatever it is that they're trying to cover up or trying to keep out of purview of the public. So the order was similar to another one on December 5 by a federal judge in Florida. U.S. District Judge Rodney Smith ordered the release of grand jury transcripts from the abandoned investigation of Epstein in 2005 to 2007. And if you had a chance to look at any of the information dating back to that particular time, you will find out that there was implicit cooperation from the prosecutor then to cover up Epstein's crimes. Not even alleged, because they allow him to enter into a plea deal or whatever type of deal they allow him to enter into, and they tried to keep it a secret, but it all became made known after a while. Epstein, according to the article, died by Cite in 2019 while awaiting trial. I still don't understand that. If he was in a federal high-guarded prison, why would they even allow him to be around anything where he could take his own life? But dozens of Epstein's victims are mentioned in indictments, and some legal experts have said there could be 1 thousand victims. That's a lot of victims. On December 8th, the DOJ wrote that a consortium of victims had unfairly accused it of releasing personally identifiable information about victims. The department said the information had previously been released publicly, but that from this point forward, it would redact victims' names even were earlier publicly identified. Is that true? Because I don't recall any of the victims being identified by name, not even under the Biden administration. Engelmeyer wrote about two other requests for confidentiality. The judge revealed a letter on behalf of a John Doe, arguing that his identity should be redacted because it would lead to the public identifying one of Epstein's victims. Another letter from lawyer Neil Binder seeks the redaction of his clients' names. High-profile acquaintances of Epstein include um, President Donald Trump, former President Bill Clinton, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, and Andrew Mountainbaum Windsor, who lost his royal title over the scandal. See, even King Charles wasn't going to have anything tying his kingdom or his family to Jeffrey Epstein. He dealt with it swiftly and quickly, and King Charles, believe me, he's privy to a lot of information that general people in the public are not allowed to have access to. President Trump and others have strong denied wrongdoing. President Trump supported releasing the files during the 2024 presidential campaign, but his DOJ on July 7 released a memo saying no further disclosure of the documents was needed after teasing a quote truckload end quote of Epstein files in March. It spurred a rare moment of discord within the Republican Party and a movement to force a vote on the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Well, let me tell you something. This pathetic Republican Party, they're never, and I mean never, going to go in opposition to the current administration. It's not going to happen. That the things that they should be dealing with and talking about, they're not talking about. Why do you think this? And listen, mark my word, pretty soon they're going to go away on Christmas vacation or Christmas holiday, whatever they want to call it. And nothing is going to get done to help everyday people. Nothing. They're going to pack up their bags, leave Washington, D.C., and if they do release anything, it's going to be in what they call on the dumping day, which is late Fridays. So this is going to happen. The Republican Party, they're going to pack up their stuff, get ready, go away for the holidays. So don't even think that major legislation is going to be passed. There's nothing that's going to take place that is going to resolve anything that is happening about inflation, mortgages, gas, food, etc., etc. It's not going to happen. President Trump repeatedly called the issue a hoax. He made a sudden reversal in supporting the release of the files, and the bill was swiftly passed through the House, the Senate, and signed by Trump on November 19. Now, here's another story that's worth talking about. Let me pull it up. All right, these are some photos revealing the inside of infamous Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean estate. Who cares? That place has been cleaned, washed, and sanitized. All right, let's deal with Ghislaine Maxwell wanting to be released from prison. I know I had it up here on my feed. You know what I'll do? I'll pull it up a different way. Just give me a moment. Let's see, Maxwell wants to get out of prison. Well, once they moved her to that minimum security place, okay, here we go. Oh, I think I found it. Let me see if I can get this story up. Now they want you to pay for it, and I'm not paying for anything. If it's not free, you can believe me, I'm not dealing with it. All right. She petitions the court, right? All right, here you go. Now, this was reported on December 4th by USA Today, uh, written by Terry Collins. Ghislaine Maxwell, the close associate and convicted accomplice of the late disgraced financier and accused sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, intends to file a petition asking the judge to release her from prison. In a court filing to U.S. District Court, Judge Paul Engelmayer on Wednesday, December 3rd, Maxwell's attorney did not provide specific details on what legal grounds she would argue in her habeas corpus or body of evidence petition seeking her prison release. See, this is the problem with Ghislaine Maxwell. She's trying to strike a deal, not with the courts, but with the DOJ, in order for her to walk out of prison without any stipulations attached whatsoever based upon what she knows. And then, in one instance, she said she wants total immunity from prosecution if she agrees to testify about what she knows. So basically, she is using what information she knows about Jeffrey Epstein, whom she was extremely complicit with in doing whatever they did, as a bargaining chip to get out of prison. She wants a get out of jail free card. That's what she wants. And to date, she hasn't said anything incriminating people in high places. But if push comes to shove and she can't get what she wants, if she can't get that pardon or she can't be released from prison, then she's going to change her whole MO, and her whole attitude will begin to change. See, it's something to think about when you seemingly hold all the cards. And remember when all the lawyers went up to the prison to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell when she was in a maximum state penitentiary? All the high ones, all the high officials went up there and sat down and talked with her before she was moved to the minimum security prison. You know, this is a very, very slippery slope that Ghislaine Maxwell is walking. The court filing also states that Maxwell plans to file her petition pro se, meaning without a lawyer. She's saying that she has injured it, meaning she would represent herself and pursue her early release without the help of a lawyer. The filing is in response to the Justice Department's request to unseal grand jury transcripts from Maxwell's case. Maxwell's petition also comes with almost 2 months after the Supreme Court rejected the appeal of her conviction and sentence. You notice that the Supreme Court rules on a lot of things, but they won't let her out of jail. They were quick to deny her. They were quick to say, you know what, we're not going to help you. Denied. Do you know why they keep denying her help? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand behind the scenes what's going on. They're told not to grant her what she wants. They're following orders. Don't believe everything you see coming across MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, uh, Max News, whatever news they want to call it. All that stuff is scripted. Because all the talking heads are only going to go by what the producer or the editor is them in their ears. They're not going to really put up a fuss or a fight. The only person who really challenged anybody was Don Lemon when he worked for CNN. You know, Don Lemon used to get tired of them talking to him through that earpiece that was in his ear. Responsible journalism is journalism without oversight. So Maxwell petition also comes almost 2 months after the Supreme Court rejected the appeal of her conviction and sentence. She was convicted in a New York federal court in 2021 on 5 counts related to sex trafficking and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Maxwell is the only associate of Epstein to face prison time. Epstein died in custody while awaiting trial. The woman wants out, and she's determined to get out. She is currently in a minimum security women's prison in Texas after being transferred from a federal prison in Florida. The move came shortly after she was interviewed about Epstein by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, President Donald Trump's former defense attorney. The new court filing warned that releasing documents related to Maxwell's case may, quote, contain untested and unproven allegations, end quote. The one-page document added that the release of grand jury materials also, quote, would create undue prejudice so severe that it would foreclose the possibility of a fair retrial, end quote, if Maxwell's petition for release is successful. Mark my word, if this woman doesn't get what she wants, she's going to start talking. She will. She does not want to stay in prison for 20 years. The court filing also came on the same day that House Democrats on the Oversight Committee released never-before-seen photos and videos from a private Caribbean island that Epstein once owned. The Justice Department has until December 19 to release more records from its files under a law Congress passed in November. Guess what? Christmas time is coming, holiday time is coming, New Year's is coming, ain't nothing getting done. People are going on vacation now. The House Oversight Committee did not immediately return USA Today's request for comment about Maxwell's court filing. So, it's crazy, but ladies and gentlemen, it's true. Continuous controversy over Epstein's criminal case files have tormented President Trump. Epstein and Maxwell were friends of Trump in the 1990s and early 2000s. So what individuals don't understand is this. Political football is taking place right now. Political chess is taking place. Now, this same story all right, they're just repeating the same thing. So my question is this. Why is Maxwell so determined to A, file pro se, B, hurry up and get out of prison? What's going on here? Think about it. Never surrender. Never quit.